Look what I got today. Printed deli paper from Smashburger. You can really get some neat things if these places have pattern stuff. You can ask them, and sometimes they'll bring you a pretty good handful. Sometimes they're kind of chintzy. But hey, that'll look great with some black stamping on it. Alright, talk to you later. Bye. Hi guys, it's Vicki, and it is hashtag Love Summer Art Weekend, our first project, and I saw this as I was doing another one of the studio videos and thought, well, I don't have anything already going because of the studio redo, so I thought I'd show you some of my crazy projects. And I will show you some stills of the things that go along with this. First, I mentioned this in another video. One of the crazy media things I tried was pottery. Everybody said, why don't you just stick with one? You're good with watercolor. And I said, well, yeah, watercolor was the first thing I tried. What if there's something else out there that I love even more? Yeah. Well, guess what? There was. And I think I've dabbled in all of them. Anyway, this was the pottery adventure. And a friend of mine and I took a class together, and I decided I wanted to carve my own chop, which is kind of the oriental-y thing to do where you have your own. So anyway, this was kind of a signature I played around with, Vicki Ross, and it's got a circle around it. And Jim fired it for me, and so now I have my own chop. And we'll see how good it works in mixed media. I found it while I was filming that video. So there's that. And once upon a time, along with lots and lots of other people, we lived in what I call now lovingly the big house. It was on a golf course in Rogers, Arkansas called Pinnacle Country Club. And our plan was to take this house and do a renovation. This was about 2003, 2004. And we had a decorator come in, and we made some structural changes to the entry to make the house, you know, bring it up to date a little bit, make it look a little more like an Italian villa. Well, of course, right before we were going to finish it and put it on the market, it had already been appraised for way more than what we thought we would get, the market crashed. So anyway, about the tail end of that project, the decorator specified something similar to this to go into a wall border of ceramic tiles in our bathroom. This was going to be about 4 feet from the floor, and there would be one every 3 or 4, every 10, 12 inches, whatever. I think I needed 50 of them to go around that room. Well, these puppies were like $75 a piece, and I thought, I can do that. So for the next 3 months, I did that. And this is what I did. Started with Sculpey, and I didn't copy that pattern. I just kind of made my own. The 2 different colors of Sculpey don't mean anything. It's just what I ended up having on hand. And once I carved and carved and carved and, you know, all that stuff, I'll give you a little better close-up. This 3-dimensional pattern. Then I...
Let me check on that.
Oh, Siri.
I found quite a number of movies in 3D. Big Hero 6. How to Train Your Dragon 2. And the Lego Movie. Would you like to hear the rest?
No, thank you, Siri. Oh, God. Well, don't you love technology? Okay, so I carved it and I cooked it. Okay, so now it's hard. Alright, you might ask yourself, what's the next thing? Well, the next thing, after tons of research, thank you, Google, you have to make at one point, this was rubber. And you buy rubber from Old Making in small cans. So I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. So I built a little box for this to sit in, and then I painted it with the rubber. Okay? Now, the next thing you have to do is, if you're going to duplicate this over and over, you have to make a form so that when you take this out and you pour cold bronzing material in here, if you don't have a base for this to keep it rigid, your form, because this was real loose and rubbery then, it won't hold its shape. So okay, I've got this in a box. Pretend that's in a box. And I come along with plaster of Paris. And mix up plaster of Paris. And I pour it over the rubber. It's still in the box. Let it cure. I don't remember exactly what it was. But let it cure for the couple days or whatever for it to dry. And wait a minute. Before I did that, before I did the plaster of Paris, I cut registration spots in the side of this so that I would make sure that it always lined up where it was supposed to be. Then I made the mold. Okay? Then you take this out and you put it away. Now, just for the sake of showing you guys, I didn't have it lined up correctly. This fits right in there, and the little notches match. Remember, I told you I cut those before I poured the mold, poured the plaster. Okay, now you've got the reverse image of this. See, it's going down. It's an innie instead of an outie. The next thing I did was research. Well, actually, I was researching the whole time. I found out that there is a cold bronze casting method, and it uses a powdered bronze and a resin. And it was one of those things where you mix it in a cup. So, of course, being frugal like I am, I thought, boy, that's going to take some money to make the 50 of these, or however many it was I needed. So what if I do the bronze, pour it in there, and then fill in the back of it with some straight plaster of Paris? And that's what I did. And then I let those cure. Now, when they came out of the mold, this is a bad one because the good ones went in the wall. This is what it looked like, and it looks awful. This one, of course, does because it wasn't molded good. But look at the finish. It's dull. It doesn't look anything like bronze. You can see in here a couple places where I tried to buff it. We ended up with a professional bench grinder sitting on my workspace, and I polished these things for days. I used Dremel tools, I used the bench sander, I used everything I could get my hands on. The little stones I ordered online, and they were a color that matched the granite in the house that we used. These are some of the ones I have left over. And once that was all done, I just popped one of my little stones in there and glued it down and waited for the tile guys to put it all together. And it was really neat and a nice craftsman approach. This is the actual pouring into the mold. The bronze went first and then the plaster. And then it sat for several hours or a day or so overnight, I don't remember, in the mold before it was decanted. And this is what the piece looks like fresh out of the mold. You can see how dull it is and how out of focus it is. I'm finished casting here, and these have been polished, and there's several that have not been polished yet. And the very next project that I laughingly call the Nightmare is sitting right there above it. This is what the piece looks like actually into the wall. The limestone trim. Pretty nice. I was proud of that. And there's a shot of the border. It went all the way around the entire room. This is the picture that the designer had spec'd for the hearth and the corbels. Of course, she spec'd a real limestone hand-carved mantle and columns, and we all know that I decided to do it myself. So I did the same process. I carved that out of, actually I used paper mache first, and it molded. And so I ended up using the never dry clay that they use for sculpting, not Sculpey, not the stuff that has to be heat set, but this is what real sculptors use. So I ended up using a bunch of that and a gallon or 2 of the liquid latex, and then tried to build the forms, which promptly fell apart because those corbels were this big and they were 3 feet long, and I needed 4 of them. Well, the outside mold broke with the pressure. I ended up out in the flower bed. It was an elevated flower bed. Ended up with holes dug in the flower bed and filled it with sand, thinking that might work. I ended up, of course, I had gloves on up here. I had to mix Quickcrete, a lot of it, in a great big bucket. And true to Vicki form, stuck my gloved hand down in there and started stirring that stuff up, and of course it went over the glove and all over my hands. It took a while for all that to heal because it was really caustic on my skin. I forgot to mention that the final product was rough and beaten and distressed, so I went in there and put my initials, my name stamp I showed you earlier with the pottery, and stamped that in there, and stamped in some leaves and texture, and I am quite sure that whoever ended up at that house probably renovated that fireplace again. But anyway, that was my experience on a crazy mixed media project. So if you'll go to YouTube and search for that, Love Summer Art, you'll find over 250 creators of art videos in all genres, all media, and you'll have some fun. And the next video in this series will be the last one, and it will be after the white cube units. I've got about 40 of them coming to put in this room and finish it all off, and then I'll do a final video of Vicki's new studio. So I'll see you in about, the stuff should be in on this coming Friday, so it'll take the weekend to put it together, and I think it'll be easy to move everything into its cube because it's been sorted, organized, and all the boxes have been made. So we'll see, and I'll see you then. Bye. I will show you some pictures of that so you can have a good laugh. This little project turned out pretty good, and when I saw it the other day I thought, you know, you guys might enjoy seeing some of my escapades into other forms of mixed media. And when I whine about not knowing how to do a journal page, you can laugh. because it's really ridiculous for me to complain that I can't do something when I've done some of these other things. So anyway, that's my quick video for today, and please search for hashtag Love Summer Art. You will find hundreds of videos because there are over 250 artists participating, and each person has done, some people have done multiple videos. So you'll see stuff that you can see forever. Make a note of it and go search for it. Bye.